And good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, we have breaking news. Kim Jong-un has convened an urgent military meeting at the Supreme Command in Pyongyang and ordered rockets to be on standby for firing at American targets, including the American mainland and military bases in the Pacific and South Korea. This is according to North Korean state media, which also quotes Kim saying, quote, "The time has come to settle accounts with the United States if the U.S. makes a, quote, reckless provocation." This latest move is in retaliation to the United States flying two B-2 Spirit bombers over South Korea today. Now, this was a training exercise, but of course, it was also meant as a forceful signal to North Korea. The stealth bombers, you see them there, are capable of carrying nuclear loads as well as conventional ones. They flew more than 6,500 miles from Missouri to South Korea just for this exercise. According to the U.S. forces in Korea, the mission, quote, demonstrates the United States' ability to conduct long-range precision strikes quickly and at will. Our Jim Clancy is in Seoul, South Korea tonight. Jim, what more can you tell us about Kim's threats against the United States?
Well, let's be clear here. Kim is orchestrating all of this. The rhetoric continues to flow like lava from Pyongyang, these threats. At the same time, it can be said that the U.S. has ratcheted up the tension here on the peninsula with those flights, first by B-52s and then by B-2A bombers. This sends a message to Pyongyang, and they don't like the sound of it. Therefore, we had this statement, and it actually came from General Kim Yong-chol, who's vice chief of the general staff, and he is the one who said, we have come to settle accounts with the U.S. imperialists in view of the prevailing situation. But at the same time, it's a conditional. That is, if there is a provocation, then we are ready to attack in the Pacific theater, to strike Guam, to strike Hawaii, to strike the U.S. mainland, and of course, to strike South Korea. But it's, as I said, it's conditional on a provocation, and that is not defined. It can be said that while there's probably no one left alive, or very few who remember the B-52 strikes back during the Korean War, some of those aging generals that we always see around Kim Jong-un, they do remember the carpet bombing that was carried out by B-52s. This is a very strong signal from the U.S. that says, think again. Erin?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jim, for that tonight, live from Seoul. Out front tonight, Pentagon Press Secretary George Little. And good to talk to you, George. You know, this week, North Korea's military put its strategic rocket units on combat-ready status, the highest level. They said they're ready to attack all American military bases in the Asia-Pacific region, and they've talked of a simmering nuclear war. You know, your boss, the defense secretary, said today that, you know, I'll quote him, "We have to be prepared to deal with any eventuality." And some say that that use of the word eventuality is an admission there could be war. Are you preparing for that?
Erin, no one wants there to be war on the Korean Peninsula. Let me make that very clear. That being said, North Korea has engaged recently in a string of provocations, overheated rhetoric, and none of that is helpful to stability on the Korean Peninsula or the region. And it is our solemn obligation to protect our alliance with South Korea, the South Korean people, and our forces in South Korea, as well as our other friends in the region like Japan.
Now, you may reach a moment where you have to make a choice, where things escalate so much that you're worried that they could strike Americans, and you may have to strike before, preemptively. Is that something the United States would be willing to do?
I'm not going to speculate on what we may or may not do. Our desire is peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. The North Koreans have two choices. They can choose the path of peace, or they can choose the path of provocation. One is better than the other for everyone involved, including the North Korean military and the North Korean people.
Haven't they already chosen a path of provocation, though? I mean, I guess the question is, you know, they keep upping the ante, and, you know, we keep taking it. Maybe that's all this country can do. I mean, how do you respond to that?
Well, provocative behavior is not exactly new in North Korean history. This has been something they've done for decades. So they go through these cycles from time to time, and we have to deal with them. We have to be sober, calm, cool, collected about these periods. That's what we're doing right now. And we are assuring our South Korean allies day to day that we stand with them in the face of these provocations.
I guess the question always is, you know, you want to be sober and calm, but mistakes can happen. And the Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel spoke a little bit about that today, about the fine line here. Here he is.
You only need to be wrong once. And I don't know what president or what chairman or what Secretary of Defense wants to be wrong once when it comes to nuclear threats.
How can you ensure you won't be wrong on this?
The Secretary is absolutely right. There's always the risk of miscalculation, and we have guarded against miscalculation on the Korean Peninsula for over 60 years. And the Secretary and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, it's their job to ensure that our military is prepared to respond to any threat or contingency. We are. We hope to avoid miscalculation, and we think that we can. The North Koreans simply need to dial the temperature down.
So, you know, some people have said, well, of course, there's actually bombing the United States, and they don't yet have the capability to do that with a nuclear warhead. They do have the capability, and some experts have been on this program saying that they would, if they could, create some sort of a nuclear dirty bomb and put it, say, in the middle of Times Square. That's something they could and would do if they could. If that happened, how would the U.S. respond? Would that be enough for war? Would that be enough for us to respond with nuclear weapons?
Well, those are very serious scenarios, obviously, and again, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. The important thing is for us to stay out ahead of what we think the North Korean threat is, especially from their missile program. They've been testing more missiles, and they've been growing their capabilities, and we have to stay out ahead. That's why we recently announced a new missile defense policy. We're going to put 14 new ground-based interceptors in Alaska to address the North Korean threat. And that's in direct response to what we believe is the trajectory, literally and figuratively, of their missile program.
Our thanks to you, George Little. And still to come.